Welcome to another edition of Testimony Time with me, Doug Harris, and I'm really glad to welcome back to Revelation TV my guest today. Welcome back because he has been on Classic Praise with Gordon, and Gordon said we've got to get this guy's story afterwards, and so welcome Jim Patterson. Thank you so much for coming back again.
I'm very happy to be back home. Feels good.
I mean, I feel like, because we've been sitting here chatting for the last 10 minutes or so, and,
sure.
and I had all the stories. Very interesting life that you've had, and we're going to begin to get into that. Singing now, and we will play one of your songs during this show that that you recorded here in the studio. But Jim, start your test. We start with your early life and what it was like and what happened to you as a young child.
Yes, I always say that life was great till about the age of 12. I was born to a lady that wasn't married, wasn't a Christian, and things were very difficult at the time for her because people talked. Now, she kept me until the age of 3. At the age of 3, apparently my grandfather became very difficult, and she decided to put me up for adoption. That was all done. So from the age of 3 to the age of 12, I can say life was really idyllic. My adopted parents had a small farm. I couldn't wait to get home from school. School was up the lane, about, I suppose, 1.5 miles, 2 miles, up the lane and across the road. Couldn't wait to get home from school, so that I could change and get alongside my dad. My dad was one of those that everything he was doing, he would say, Jim, and in Ireland I'll use the Irish language, come here, come here. Now, I'm not trying to be the guy with the Wellingtons, but he would say, come here, let me show you this. And so I learned lots of things because my dad took the time to show me. I loved him, Doug. I was almost saying then that I idolized him, but in the right sort of way. He was a man that he would take me to Sunday school, he would take me to church, and it was fantastic. But unfortunately, he got septic poisoning in his ring finger, went to hospital to have the finger lanced, and I remember waving bye-bye to him and then looking out across the valley. This is in Northern Ireland, and folks listening and folks viewing may know of a place called Ballygolly. Somebody once said if you went to Ballymena with your Ballymoney, you could have bought a Ballycastle for your Ballyhome. Well,
okay, well, I'm glad they only said it once.
Ballygolly is in County Tyrone, about 25 miles or so from Belfast. And I remember looking across the valley and seeing the bus go by and thinking to myself, about an hour or so. And so every bus that came back, I was watching because I believed my dad would be on one of those buses. Well, the day went and it came to evening time, night time, and the reality is that Dad died in hospital, not from the septic poisoning, but his heart failed. And I never saw him again. And I wish I had it done, because I remember a little fella, I was 12 years of age, all these people behind this hearse, and I'm right beside it, and I'm thinking, you know, my dad's in there, and I never got a chance to say bye-bye and all of that.
What, as you say, up until that,
it was great.
Life was great. What began to happen in those weeks, months after your father's sudden death?
Well, I lost my dad, and then I lost the farm. And on the farm, you know, I had a pet dog, and I had a donkey. The donkey was called Jackie. Even the hens and the ducks, they all had names. The cows, everything had a name, you know. And then the farm was sold. Now, that left me with a mother, bless her, and I have forgiven her years ago, years and years ago, because the Bible says if I don't forgive, I won't be forgiven.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to say the Lord's Prayer, because the Lord's Prayer says, Our Father which art in heaven. Then it says, please forgive me as I forgive those. So I've forgiven my adopted mother years ago. But the thing is, after Dad died, she became an angry person. I think she was angry with God. She was angry with her circumstances. She had lost her brother when he was 19. He was killed in a bike accident. And now she was left without a husband and left with this young boy growing up. She already had 3 girls, but they were all away, married, with their own families. And I think really, Doug, looking back, she did the best she could, but, she hadn't read the book that said you shouldn't hit your child around the head. You shouldn't strip your child at the age of 17 and beat it with a sally rod. A sally rod in Ireland, it's a thin rod, and boy, it hurts. When you get hit with that, it will leave a welt in your skin. I say again, I forgave her years ago, and I only use that to explain why life became so miserable for me, I decided to run away.
Yeah, I find that interesting because I didn't know all the ins and outs behind that. But you get to this point where, yeah, you can't stand it anymore, you run away, and you think you're going to run away to something better, but you didn't in the end, did you?
No, I didn't really. I came to England and, making a long story short, began to build this new life. Coming now 17, I was 17 when I ran away, so I'm now 17 and a half, 18 going on. And looking at the girls, when I look at them, something happens to the heart, you know, it begins to beat faster. I fell madly in love with one and got engaged, and then decided to join the regular army. And I signed on for 23 years, signed my life away.
Wow.
Everything really was going well, so I thought. I'd got my first stripe. I was now Lance Corporal Jim Patterson. I don't know how far I would have gone had I stayed, but I enjoyed the life. I enjoyed the discipline, all of that. Going home, once I'd finished my basic training, I was able to go home and leave up to the Midlands every weekend to see my fiancée. And unfortunately, just like when my father died suddenly, I was in for an awful shock one weekend when I went home on leave, because instead of being met with the open arms of my fiancée, she wasn't there. Long story short, I went to her home. I found out where she was. She was in the cinema. Now, that was okay had she have gone to the cinema, apart from why is she there when she knew I was coming home? However, I waited, and out she came. And there's a young man all over her, Doug, like a rash, all over my fiancée, with my ring on her finger. So we met, we had words. I asked for the ring back. And I went back, Doug, to the barracks in Aldershot in Hampshire with a broken heart again. It had already been broken when I lost my dad. Now, I believe it had begun to heal a bit, but now it was smashed to pieces again. And life became so hard now because some of the lads were bullying me. I tended to be very timid in those days. They were bullying me, taking advantage of me, humiliating me. And, you know, there is something I heard years ago, Doug. It says you can live for 40 days without food. You can live for 8 days without water. You can live for 4 to 6 minutes without air, but you can only live for seconds without hope. And I ran out of hope. Life hurt so bad, so black, so terrible. I had no future, so I tried to end it.
I think alcohol played a part, and then, as you say, you tried to commit suicide. When you came round from that, what were your thoughts? What were your feelings?
When I came round, I was still hurting terribly. They treated me in the army, in the medical wing, for Asian flu, but it wasn't Asian flu. Now, when I was strong enough, I walked about the 10-minute walk down to Aldershot town, and in those days there was a NAFI club, where we all met for drinks and snooker and all of that. And as I'm standing at the bar, having a drink, I'm thinking to myself, Jim, you are so stupid. Why mess about with sleeping tablets as I had done, and alcohol? You should just be sick again, and you're still hurting. You've still got no hope. Life hasn't changed.
No answers, no hope.
No answers, no hope. See, I didn't know then what I know now, Doug. Without God, without Christ, without hope. See? And the thought came, when I finish this drink, I'm going back to my barracks. I'm going to get my rifle. And I know where there's a live round of ammunition. I only need the one. Yeah. Rifle, end of story. Why didn't I think of that before? While I'm thinking that, I'm conscious, and I'm sure it's happened to lots of the viewers. There's somebody looking at you, and you think, Do they know me? I don't know them. Long story short, he came forward, he introduced himself, and he said, "You look terrible, what's the problem?" And my attitude was, push off.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want to talk to you. Don't know who you are, what you are, but just push off. Leave me alone. Let me finish my drink in peace. Well, I'm so thankful to God that he was not the type that you could push off easily. He persevered.
Yeah.
Told me he was in the parachute regiment, barracks next to mine. He told me his name. And he said, "I really care about you." He said, "Although I've never met you before," he said, "I pray every day that God will lead me to somebody who needs to hear the good news." I think, wow, what a prayer, see? And he said, "I believe you need to hear the good news." And the good news is, and off he went.
Yeah.
Well, at first, I was still thinking, how can I get rid of this guy? Is there a button somewhere I can press and he will disappear? But he persevered. And as he shared, I can only call it good news. How that God loved me. God had a plan for my life. And God could heal my broken heart. And God could dry my tears. God could give me a new life. God could give me hope. And then he said, and God will forgive you for trying to take your life because that was wrong. Now, I didn't think, well, who does this guy think he is talking to me like that? I knew in my heart it was wrong. And the more he talked, the more sense it made. And then he said, Doug, he said, "I'd like to pray for you." Now, he was quite loud as it was, about 300 people in the bar. And I'm thinking, oh, God, no. Oh, no, not here. And everybody's going to be looking at us. And he must have read my face because he said, "I don't mean here." And just, folks, someone maybe watching from Aldershot will know that in Victoria Road, there's an Anglican church there, Christchurch. And it was 11 o'clock at night, in the days when you could leave the church doors open and no one would break in or walk in and steal anything. And he said, let's go and pray. And we knelt down. Now, although I'd been to Sunday school, Doug, and I'd been to church, I can honestly say I had never once in my life spoken to God. I'd heard about him. And sometimes I say, and it sounds like a line, but it's more than that. I say, I often went to the house of God, but I did not know the God of the house. And oh boy, there's a difference. You see, I had a bit of religion, but I certainly didn't have any relationship at all.
That time in that prayer, it changed, yeah?
Absolutely changed, yeah. John prayed, and then he said, "Come on, Jim, you pray." And I thought, oh, heck, what do I pray? Well, I thought, let's just tell God how I am and what I've done, and I'm sorry for that. And then I prayed this prayer, Doug. Oh, God, if you can heal my broken heart and dry my tears and give me hope, I said, I'll go to the nations of the world and I'll tell them of the hope you gave me. Well, I can honestly say that at that moment, I felt somebody hug me. Now, that does not mean that someone watching who prays that prayer, they're going to feel somebody hugging them. In my case, I really felt somebody hug me.
Jim, I think it's a great time to... I've chosen one of the 4 songs you recorded when you were here, and it's the Old Rugged Cross, and I think it's a great time for us to listen to the words of that and see just how it's been applied to your life.
Suffering and shame, and I love that old cross where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. In that old rugged cross, stained with blood so divine, a wondrous beauty I see. For 'twas on that old cross Jesus suffered and died to pardon and sanctify me. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true. Its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown.
The old rugged cross, not just a song, is it, Jim? Because it was very real for you. We left you at that point where you were praying and you were seeing, as you said, for the first time, the reality of who God was, what Jesus had done. Did everything change for you immediately? I think what you were saying is at that point you knew you had hope. Did that take a while to permeate through your life?
No, not really. I got off my knees that night, so full of real joy, real happiness, real hope. I was so excited. I really did want to tell everybody about this great joy and this great change. You see, I know now what I didn't know then. Paul the Apostle, he said in 2 Corinthians 5:17, he said, if any man be in Christ, be in a relationship with Christ, has Christ in his heart and his life, then he's a new creation, a new creature. Old things are passed away. All things can become new. I used to smoke. After that experience, I didn't want to smoke.
Right.
It would make me sick.
Yeah.
I used to drink quite heavily. I didn't drink anymore, apart from water and tea and coffee, you know. Yes, my life did change. And one of the songs, and this is not a plug for you to play another song, because I know there isn't time. If there was, we could. Maybe another program. But one of the songs I sing, and how true, He touched me.
Yeah.
Who did? Jesus did. He touched me, and he made me W-H-O-L-E. He made me whole from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet. He made me whole, Doug, spirit, soul, and body.
But it wasn't going to be easy. I think sometimes people feel that once you become a Christian, there are no more troubles in this world. But you've, even after becoming a Christian, you've had your share of real difficult times, but you've proved God through them, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. Another song that I sing it talks about He giveth more grace, and I have proved that grace. I don't like using the term first wife, but let me explain. Christine, who I got married to in 1960, went to be with the Lord in 1983. But the marvelous testimony that I have is God brought me through the most difficult time when, having been married just 6 months, the doctors came and they said, after doing some tests, etc., Mr. Patterson, they took me aside, Mr. Patterson, we're very sorry to have to tell you this, but your wife is in the advanced stages of terminal cancer. There is nothing we can do.
What went through your mind? What happened to you at that point when that...
What went through my mind very briefly was, oh God, how can you do this to me?
Yes.
How can you do this to me? Why? What has she done wrong? You can't, I mean, I'm not joking now, but, you know, the famous tennis star used to say, you cannot be serious.
Yes.
And I felt like that at the time.
Yeah.
But the thing was, once I got over that, Christine was in hospital and faced a very major operation. They're trying to rescue her. Doug, I remember that night, not knowing if I'd ever see her again. I left her after seeing her, she had the operation and she had various life support systems, etc. And I knelt by my settee and I was banging on the settee. Oh, God, how can you do this? I said, oh, God, please, please, please don't take her. And Doug, this may not be true for everybody, but I heard God speak. And the voice said this very clearly, Jim, if Christine should die, would you still serve me? And now the tears came,
yes.
and I said, oh God, I'll serve you. Whatever happens. And my mind, even as a young Christian then, my mind went to Abraham and the sacrifice of his son and other stories in the Bible. And I said, oh God, but please don't take her. Please don't take her. Now, next morning, I went to the hospital early. I could not believe what I was seeing, because Christine was now free of every possible tube, life support system, everything removed. She got a beautiful pink cardigan on, eating breakfast. An absolute miracle had taken place. Doug, I know there are precious people watching and saying, well, why didn't that happen for my husband or my wife? I understand. I wish I had those answers. I don't. But I do know this, that God is a God of love. God is a God with a tremendous plan for each one of us, even before we were born. And sometimes, like the Apostle Paul who prayed, God, he said, take this trial out of my life. And Paul says, 3 times I prayed that. And then he said, but God said to me, no, Paul, I'm not going to take it away, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come alongside you. I'm going to strengthen you, pour my power and my love and my presence into you, and you'll find that my grace is sufficient. God's grace was sufficient. We got through.
In other words, there may be difficulties which we can't immediately accept, we can't immediately praise God for, but as we seek him, he will give the grace
Yes.
for those things. Is this something you've proved in the years since, Jim?
Yes, indeed, yes, because then Christine went 18 years cancer-free. The thing, I would say, I don't know about coming back, but she had another attack. Again, it left. But then Christine went to be with the Lord in 1983. I believe that was the time. And another time, maybe I can share about how I knew it was time to release her. But in my own case, move on a little bit, 1987, God brought alongside a lovely lady called Ruth, who I am still happily married to. Ruth and I married 1987, and then a few years later, 1989, we met a pastor from Uganda. We're called to Uganda to help.
Now, that's interesting, because the night that you prayed when you became a Christian, you said you would go
I did.
into all that. God took you at your word. We
Yes,
have to
he
be
did
careful
indeed.
what we say to God sometimes,
Yes,
don't we?
indeed. I really meant it. I really meant it. And I say to people now, the fact that I'm a gospel singer and I work on radio and I've been on television a few times, I thank God for this marvelous opportunity, because it's as if he took me at my word. I said I'd go to the nations. When I was young and fit and strong, I could go to Uganda, I could go to Kenya. Now I'm just a little bit older. God is saying, look, I'll make it easy for you. I'll put a mic in front of you. I'll put a couple of cameras in front of you. But yes, I needed help in Uganda, is why I'm talking about Uganda, because I had the second heart attack there, 2 heart attacks there. I'd had one just after Christine died, and that was awful. It concerned me greatly because my daughter was only 14 when my wife died, and I remember the morning the attack came, I again cried out to God in desperation. I said, oh God, please, my poor daughter has already lost her mum. Please don't take me. Please, in your mercy, will you extend my life so that I can see her being brought up, and I don't see her without a dad?
Jim, we've run out of time. I trust you have been challenged today, been blessed today by Jim's testimony. I trust you will be able to work out in your life the real Jesus that Jim came to know and changed his life. Thank you for watching. See you again very soon. Bye for now.
As a UK charity, the Revelation Foundation can benefit from donors, allowing us to claim gift aid on their donations. This will generally increase the donation by 28%, and it doesn't cost you if you donate a single penny. We can claim this 28% direct from the government on donations made by UK taxpayers. Many people assume they have to be working to pay tax. But people who receive state pensions and other pensions also often pay income tax. Here's a simple way whether you can check if you've paid enough tax to cover a donation made to a Revelation Foundation. If you divide your donation by 4, for example, if you give £100 in a particular year, then you need to have paid tax of at least £25. And then we can claim gift aid on your donation from the UK government, a marvellous way of increasing significantly your donation, because this increase will help enormously in the work that the Revelation Foundation is doing. If you're not sure whether you're eligible for gift aid or not, please contact the Revelation office and our staff will try and help you.
Hello.
Good evening, pleased to meet you, sir.
Where are you from?
From London, England. In order to continue in this positive role, which I'm very eager to see and participate in myself personally, what would you say to encourage us to look to the future and we can continue to help? Is there a new way, perhaps?
Well, I think it's spreading the truth about Israel as opposed to the many falsehoods that are leveled against it. You know, you spoke about the evils of the last 2,000 years. Those evils were made possible because of defamation, because of vilification, because of the lies that were spread about the Jewish people. And always, physical brutality was preceded by a web of lies. And I think that working the other way, building a bastion of truth about Israel and the Jewish people and the Jewish state is the greatest corrective of that. And fortunately today we have a Jewish state, and we have many Jewish and many non-Jewish friends that can fight the battle of truth, which I believe is the most important battle for the future of the state of Israel.
Thank you very much. I agree with you entirely with that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.